It's wonderful you're all here. Thanks for making the effort. May we all be blessed with knowledge and devotion. Om. It was the first day of January 1886. It was a little more than 2 weeks since the devotees had brought the master, according to the advice of Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, to the garden house of Gopal Babu, the son-in-law of Rani Katyani at Kashipur in the north of Calcutta. The doctor had said that the air in the garden quarters was purer than in Calcutta proper, and that it was possible that the master's disease in the throat would be cured or alleviated if he could breathe as much pure air as could be had. It was a few days after he had come to the garden that Dr. Datta came to see him and administered Lycopodium 200, and it appeared that there was a little alleviation of the disease. But since his coming there, the master had never got down from the first floor of the house to the ground floor or taken a walk in the garden. He felt much better that day, and in the afternoon expressed a desire to have a walk. The devotees were therefore very happy on that day. Swami Vivekananda was then feeling an intense detachment and had given up all desires for worldly prosperity. He was then living in the company of the Master, and in order to realize the Divine Lord, was practicing various spiritual exercises according to his instruction. He used to kindle a holy fire under a tree and pass nights in meditation, japa, reading, and other devotional activities. A few other devotees also, such as the junior Gopal, Kali, and others, brought the necessary articles for helping him in sadhana, and they themselves practiced it according to their capacity. The lay devotees could not always remain with the master on account of their various worldly affairs, but whenever they had an opportunity, they came to the master, made all arrangements about the food and other necessities for those who always remained busy in the service of the master, and sometimes stayed there for a day or two. As it was, the New Year's Day offices remained closed, and many devotees came to the garden. It was 3 p.m. Dressed in a red-bordered cloth, a shirt, a thick wrapper, also with a red border, a cap covering the ears, and a pair of slippers, the master came down slowly from the first floor with Swami Abhutananda and entered the hall downstairs, observed it closely, came out of the western door, and started for a walk in the garden. Some of the lay devotees saw him thus going for a walk and followed him with great joy. The young devotees, like Narendra, were then sleeping in the small room adjacent to the hall, as they were fatigued on account of keeping vigil the previous night. When he saw that the lay devotees were going with the master, Abhutananda thought it unnecessary for him to go further with the master, and returned from the southern bank of the small pond in front of the hall, called and took with him another young devotee, and both busied themselves in sweeping and cleaning the master's room upstairs and sunning the master's bedding and clothing. Of all the lay devotees, Girish was then feeling the greatest attachment to God. At one time, the master highly praised his wonderful faith and said to other devotees, "Girish has more than 100% faith. People will hereafter be surprised to see his spiritual progress." On account of the great surge of faith and devotion, Girish always looked upon the master as the Divine Lord himself, incarnated through his grace to liberate souls from the bondage of the world. And although forbidden by the master, he expressed publicly that conviction of his to one and all. Girish was also present in the garden on that day and was sitting and conversing under a mango tree with Ram and other few lay devotees. Surrounded by the devotees, the master was slowly proceeding by the broad path in the garden towards the gate, and came to the middle of that path near the mango tree, where he saw Ram and Girish under its shade. He then addressed Girish and said, "Girish, what have you seen in me, on account of which you say publicly so many things that I am an incarnation and so on, to one and all. Although Girish was so abruptly questioned, his faith remained unshaken. Hurriedly and with overflowing adoration, he stood up, came to the path, knelt down at the feet of the Master, and with folded hands said in a choked voice, "What more can I say about him whose glory even Vyasa and Valmiki in their immortal epics and Puranas failed miserably to express even a fraction of it?" Hearing Girish's words of such wonderful faith, the Master had ripulation all over his body. His mind ascended to a high plane, and he was in samadhi. Then, seeing the Master's face illumined with the divine halo, Girish cried out in great joy, "Glory to Ramakrishna! Glory to Ramakrishna!" and took the dust of his feet again and again. In the meanwhile, in the state of divine semi-consciousness, the Master looked at all present and said, smiling, "What more shall I say to you? May all of you be spiritually awakened." When the devotees heard those words of blessing, destroying their fear of the world, they raised with great joy repeated cries of "Glory to Ramakrishna." Some of them saluted him, some showered flowers, some again came and touched his feet. No sooner had the first devotee touched his feet and stood up than the Master, in that state of divine semi-consciousness, touched the devotee's breast and passing his hand in the upward direction said, "Awake." As soon as the second person came up and saluted him and stood up, he did the same thing to him. So on to the third and to the fourth. In this way he touched one after another, all of those who approached him thus. And there arose by that marvelous touch a wonderful mood in the mind of each. Some of them began to laugh, some to weep, some to meditate, and some again to call aloud all others in order that they might also be blessed by receiving the grace of the Master. The sea of graciousness, mercy, the sea of gratuitous mercy, and share the bliss that was overflowing. The noise and cries were so great that some of the devotees who afterwards became monks got up from their sleep, and others gave up work that they were engaged in. They came running and saw that all the devotees stood surrounding the Master and were behaving like madmen on the path in the garden. And as soon as they saw it, they knew that it was in the same divine play of the Master, which under the influence of the divine mood, he had enacted for his especial devotees at Dakshineshwar in order to bestow grace on them, that was now being manifested and enacted for the good of all on that occasion, so that all might receive divine grace. Hardly had the devotees who were monks in the making come when that state of the Master changed and he was in normal condition again. It was known on inquiry that the devotees had wonderful experiences and visions. One felt bliss and a sort of intoxication, such as produced by smoking hemp. Another, an unknown power creeping up within his body with accompanying bliss. Others saw ecstatic visions the moment they shut their eyes. One of light, another of the shining form of God he had been meditating upon but had not been able to see. All hitherto unseen, unheard of, and unfelt experiences these were. It was, however, clear that although each had a different vision and experience, the feeling of being filled with an extraordinary divine bliss was common to all. More than this, each felt that the extraordinary mental change or experience was brought about by the transmission of a superhuman power by the Master. There were only 2 of the devotees present whom the Master did not touch, saying, "Not now." And it was those 2 only that considered themselves unfortunate and felt dejected on that happy occasion. Another fact stands out from this, that it was not at all certain when that divine power would graciously manifest itself through the Master to anyone. It is also doubtful whether the Master himself could have known or understood this in his normal consciousness. But it is important to note that the Master could become a great instrument of the universal I, or the Divine Mother, in manifesting power, only because he could give up completely the unripe or limited I, and that wonderful manifestation through him of the aspect of the Divine Mother as the spiritual teacher of the people and of the world became a fact because he completely gave up that unripe I and converted himself into the humblest of humble. The history of the religions of the world is an eternal witness to the fact that it was only by the merging of the limited I-ness in this way that the mood or the power of the spiritual teacher became manifest in the lives of all incarnations of all religions. Om Shanti, 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 peace, peace.